It was barely 6 a.m. when Maid pulled the heavy wooden door shut behind her, the chill of the Manhattan morning biting at her cheek as she faced the looming silhouette of the Whitlock estate. She adjusted the single strap of her worn leather bag and took a breath so deep it hurt. The mansion stood like a cathedral to another world. Sleek black cars parked in a curved line before the entrance, glass panels that shimmered like ice and rows of spotless windows reflecting a sky she hadn't dared to dream under in months. This wasn't just a job. It was survival, and she hated that. The death of her mother 6 weeks ago had shattered what little stability she had left. No savings, no backup plan, no time to grieve. She had taken the first job she could find that didn't require a degree or references. A maid in the private residence of the elusive Serena Whitlock, CEO of Whitlock International, a name spoken in hushed tones across the business world, and in frustrated murmurs by staff who rarely lasted more than a few weeks. Everyone said she was ruthless, cold, a machine in a designer suit. Jade didn't care. She could endure anything. She had to. The grand double doors opened before she could knock. A middle-aged woman in a crisp uniform greeted her without a smile. "You're late," she said, glancing at the clock in the hallway. 3 minutes. Jade opened her mouth to apologize, but the woman had already turned. "Come. Mrs. Whitlock hates delays." The mansion was even more intimidating from the inside. Everything gleamed. The floor was marble, the walls adorned with minimalist art that looked absurdly expensive. Jade's boots squeaked slightly with each step, and she immediately became hyper-aware of her posture, her walk, the way her breath echoed in the space. They passed a series of rooms, a library, a home theater, and indoor garden, until they reached the main living area, where tall windows bathed the room in a cold morning light. And then she saw her Serena Whitlock standing near the window, dressed in a sleek navy suit, her long dark hair tied into a sharp nonsense ponytail. "Hey, if you're enjoying this story, go ahead and drop a like to help us grow even more. And let me know in the comments, on a scale from 0 to 10, what score would you give this story so far? Your feedback makes all the difference." She didn't turn when they entered. "Is this her?" she asked without emotion. "Yes, ma'am." Jade Chen. There was a pause. Then Serena turned and everything in Jade's body stopped. She had expected someone intimidating, sure, but nothing had prepared her for the reality of Serena Whitlock. Tall, poised, eyes so gray they looked like storm clouds over steel. Her gaze landed on Jade with clinical precision, like she was reading a dossier. Jade straightened her spine. "Don't flinch." Serena's voice was low, perfectly controlled. "You're young." "Yes, ma'am." "No experience." "No, ma'am." "Why are you here?" Jade hesitated, her throat dry. "Because I need to be." Serena's eyes flickered, something sharp behind them. Not quite interest, but something close. She turned back to the window. "You'll be assigned to the East Wing. Cleaning, laundry, and kitchen duties. You'll report to Ms. Pembroke for instructions. Don't touch anything that looks expensive. Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't ever enter my office." "Understood." Jade nodded. "Understood." Serena glanced back at her. "One more thing." She stepped closer. "You'll be invisible. That's your job. Be efficient. Be quiet. Be gone." Jade felt her pulse thudding in her ears, but nodded again. Of course. It was only after Serena walked past her, and the air shifted with the scent of her perfume, subtle, expensive, devastating, that Jade allowed herself to breathe. The next few hours blurred in a rhythm of scrubbing, wiping, folding, and trying not to stare too long at anything that looked like it cost more than her life. The other staff kept their heads down. No one spoke of Serena unless absolutely necessary. And yet she was everywhere. Her presence lingered in every corridor, in every perfectly aligned book on the shelf, in every clock that ticked like a metronome of control. Jade tried to ignore it. Focus, focus. But by early afternoon, she found herself alone in the hallway near the private office she had been told not to enter. The door was slightly open. She didn't mean to look inside truly, but something about the soft light filtering through the curtains, the glimpse of framed photographs, not cold corporate ones, but personal, pulled her in for just 1 second. That was when she heard the voice. "Do you have trouble following instructions?" Jade turned like she'd been burned. Serena stood just behind her, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. I didn't mean to." "I'm sorry," Jade stammered. The door was open, and that gave you permission. Serena's tone was icy, but there was no shouting. She didn't need to shout. She simply stepped closer, eyes locked on Jade's with that same unsettling stillness. "Tell me, Miss Chen, what exactly did you hope to find in my office? A weakness, a scandal, or were you just curious?" Jade swallowed hard. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I got lost." "Did you?" Serena's voice softened almost imperceptibly. "Or are you the kind of girl who always touches what she's told not to?" There was a beat of silence. Something shifted. The air felt thick, dangerous, charged. Jade's voice was barely above a whisper. "I'm not afraid of rules, but I follow them." Serena tilted her head, something unreadable dancing in her eyes. "We'll see about that." Then she turned and walked away, heels clicking with quiet finality. Jade stood there, heart pounding, wondering what the hell had just happened, and why her skin was still burning under her uniform. The next morning, the house felt colder. Or maybe it was Jade's skin that hadn't stopped burning since yesterday's encounter. She barely slept, replaying every word, every glance. The subtle shift in Serena's voice when she'd said, "We'll see about that." It wasn't a threat. It was something else. A promise. A game. She didn't know. She just knew that her body hadn't calmed down since. She scrubbed the kitchen counters harder than necessary. The scent of lemon disinfectant sharpened her nose, hoping the rhythm would steady her nerves. "You're going to strip the marble at this rate," said Agnes, the older maid, who had taken a quiet liking to her. Jade offered a weak smile. "Just trying to make a good impression." Agnes raised a brow. "From what I hear, you've already made one." Jade's breath caught. "What?" "You were caught near the office." Agnes kept her voice low. "She doesn't let anyone near the door. And yet, you're still here." Jade shrugged, trying to seem unaffected. "She gave me a warning, that's all." Agnes gave her a knowing look, but said nothing more. The staff respected Serena, but they feared her more. She rarely spoke to them directly unless it was to issue a command. Yet somehow, Jade had already earned to direct conversations in her first day. She tried to tell herself it didn't mean anything, but she didn't believe it. By mid-afternoon, the rhythm of the house had become familiar. Clean, fold, serve, stay quiet, stay invisible. But when Jade passed the west corridor and heard soft coughing behind a partially closed door, she paused. Inside, she found Agnes hunched near a cabinet, pale and shaking slightly. "Are you okay?" Jade asked. "It's nothing," Agnes murmured. "Just dizzy. I haven't eaten since last night. We've been so busy." Jade didn't hesitate. She grabbed a bottle of water from the hallway cart and helped Agnes to a bench nearby. She knew the house rules. No interruptions, no lingering, no personal conversations during work hours. But rules didn't matter when someone needed help. She went to the kitchen and prepared a quick sandwich. Simple, fast, then brought it back. Agnes protested weakly, but took it. "You didn't have to do this." "I wanted to," Jade said. "You looked like you were about to pass out." As she helped her settle again, she didn't hear the soft footsteps behind her. "So, this is how you spend your workday." The voice froze her blood. "Serena." Jade rose at once, turning to face her. The CEA wore black trousers and a cashmere top the shade of midnight. Her hair was down, flawless and loose, and her expression was cold yet not inscrutable. Something lay beneath it. She wasn't feeling well, Jade said quickly. I only meant to disregard protocol. Serena's tone was sharp. Leaving your station, making unapproved food in my kitchen. I apologize. Sorry. Serena took one step forward. I gave you explicit orders yesterday. Unseen, Miss Chen. Do you recall that word? Jade nodded. Yes, ma'am. And still you are here. Visible. Quite visible. A silence fell, so thick the air grew difficult to breathe. Agnes tried to speak. It wasn't her fault. Quiet, Serena said without glancing her way. Then her eyes fixed on Jade's again. Follow me. It wasn't a request. Jade trailed her down the hall, pulse rushing. They moved past door after door until they reached one. Hers. Serena opened it and entered without speaking. Jade paused for a moment. Yesterday's memory still vivid, but then stepped through. The office was as orderly as she recalled. Sleek surfaces, black leather, muted lights. Behind the large desk, Serena turned and motioned to the chair across from her. Sit. Jade obeyed, hands clenched in her lap. Serena sat, elbows resting lightly on the desk, gaze locked on her as if dissecting each thought. Why did you truly assist her? I told you she felt faint. She required food. That is the superficial reply, Serena said evenly. I want the genuine one. Jade blinked. I don't follow. You appear to believe compassion is always virtuous, Serena said, voice soft. Yet sometimes compassion is intrusion, frailty, defiance disguised as charity. That isn't what this was, is it? Serena leaned forward slightly. You believe you're distinct, don't you? That you will endure here longer than the rest. I don't assume anything. I only wish to work. And yet once more you are in my office. Jade swallowed. I never intended to violate any rules. But you did, Serena said quietly. Twice in 2 days. That is notable. She stood, circling the desk slowly until she stood beside Jade. Rise. Jade obeyed, standing with an unsteady breath. Serena didn't advance, but she didn't retreat either. They stood too near. The gap between them hummed like energy. Tell me something, Miss Chen, Serena said softly. Why did you truly come here? For employment. Liar. The word struck deeper than it should have. You might have selected any household, any position, but you picked mine. Why? I didn't choose. You did. You accepted the offer. You entered through those doors. So I ask again, why mine? Jade's voice was nearly a whisper. Because I had no other options. Serena was still a moment. Better. Still not the truth. But nearer. Jade frowned. Why is this important to you? Because individuals like you are hazardous, Serena said, tone smooth as silk. You arrive with wide eyes and noble aims. And you depart leaving chaos. You don't know me, do you? Serena's eyes dipped, just for an instant, to Jade's lips. It was so fleeting she might have imagined it, but she hadn't. She felt it. Warmth. Current. Jade stepped back. May I go back to my duties now? Serena's smile was faint, for the present. As Jade walked out, heart hammering so loudly it echoed in her ears, she didn't grasp what had just occurred. But she knew one thing. She was no longer invisible. Not to Serena, and that frightened her beyond all else. Jade didn't speak to anyone for the remainder of the day. She couldn't. Every nerve was still frayed from the strain in that room. Serena's words, her nearness, that almost glance at her mouth. It lingered beneath her skin like static. She replayed it again and again, attempting to persuade herself it meant nothing. That Serena was only playing a match of control. But a part of her, the part she could not silence, did not believe it. That night, she dreamed of eyes the shade of tempests and voices that spoke her name like a dare. The next morning, the house operated like precision machinery, yet something felt altered. Serena's presence grew more persistent. Jade would turn in the hallway and find her atop the staircase, observing, not speaking, only watching, then vanishing. During the morning meal, Serena entered the kitchen, something she never did, and asked, without looking at Jade, for the coffee she always prepared best. Jade's hands shook as she made it. The other staff exchanged looks. No one spoke, but they observed. Everyone did. Serena wasn't merely cold any longer. She was curious, or more, attentive. That afternoon, as Jade polished the long dining table, one of the aides hurried through, flustered. Blast. I left the papers in the East Wing, he murmured. She will end me. What papers? Jade asked. Documents for her meeting. She's with investors now. Top floor, library. Jade didn't hesitate. She just seized the folder he offered and sprinted. She knew the regulations. Staff did not enter during meetings. But he was terrified, and Serena despised errors. Perhaps if she slipped in quietly, left it on the console. She reached the library door, heart pounding, and paused only a moment before entering. Silence descended the instant she stepped in. A room of men in suits turned to stare. At the room's head, Serena sat in a chair of deep leather, legs crossed, one hand draped lightly on the armrest like a monarch in court. Her expression did not shift. Miss Chen, her voice sliced the air. How unanticipated. I'm sorry, Jade said rapidly, lifting the folder. This was left below. I assumed. Come, Serena said, not dismissive, not furious, but interested. Jade moved cautiously across the room, conscious of every stare, conscious of how misplaced she seemed in her plain black uniform, face flushed, shoes sounding on polished floors. She extended the folder to Serena, who did not take it immediately. Instead, she gazed up at her slowly, intentionally. Efficient, she murmured, tone nearly amused. If somewhat bold. I'll go now, Jade whispered. But before she could retreat, Serena finally accepted the folder, unmistakably letting her fingers brush Jade's. The touch was brief, nearly absent, yet it sent a shock through her that tightened her throat. Thank you, Serena said, just audible enough for the others to hear, yet with something more beneath. Then she turned back to the table. Gentlemen, where were we? Jade walked out on unsteady legs. That night, the electricity failed. A storm rushed in, fierce and sudden, lightning cutting the sky and thunder rattling the glass. The mansion's backup generators engaged, but some systems delayed, including the antique elevator on the north side. Jade was in the laundry when she heard the alarm. A flashing red light. Emergency lock. Someone was stuck. She followed hallway indicators up to flights, heart racing. And there, between levels, she saw it. The elevator's metal doors jammed partway closed. She moved closer. Chen? The voice from within was unmistakable. What are you doing near this section of the house? There's an emergency alert, Jade said, striving to sound calm. Someone's trapped in the elevator. Clearly. Serena's voice was sharp, yet not afraid. Can you bypass the panel? No, Jade said, but I can force the doors. You'll need to get in first. Are you hurt? A pause. No, only irritated. Jade gripped the manual lever beside the door, strained to turn it, and pried the doors apart. Inside, Serena stood against the wall, one hand on the metal rail, her outline illuminated in faint red emergency light. Her blouse was slightly creased, her hair somewhat disordered for the first time since Jade had met her. She looked human, authentic. Come on, she said. If we both push, we can open it from inside. Jade stepped in. The instant the doors shut behind her, the world shrank. Tiny space, dim glow, quiet. Serena released a slow breath. Of all individuals who might find me. You're welcome, Jade muttered. Serena smirked. Sensitive today. You're caught in a box. I don't see you smiling either. I don't smile. I've observed. The quiet that followed was odd. Charged. Neither moved. The air felt too warm, too dense. Then Serena's voice, low and soft. You continue to astonish me. That isn't my aim. But you do. Serena turned slightly toward her. You enter my meetings, my elevator, spaces you don't belong. Perhaps you should cease being wherever I am. Perhaps, Serena said, edging slightly nearer. You should cease pretending you dislike it. Jade's breath hitched. Pardon me. You heard me. Her voice was silk. Perilous. You sense it as well? Sense what? This. Serena's hand hung just inches from Jade's arm. Not touching, yet burning regardless. You believe I haven't observed how you watch me. How you still when I'm near. You're my employer, Jade whispered. Precisely. This is improper. Why? Because it isn't real. Serena tilted her head. Then why is your heart racing? Jade didn't respond. She couldn't. Every part of her was alight, yearning, frightened. We should force the doors, she said finally. We should, Serena echoed, not moving. But not yet. And in that suspended moment, with a storm raging outside, with no one to see, with rules dissolving like ash, something changed between them that neither could ever reverse. Jade scarcely slept after the elevator. Not because anything had technically occurred, but because something nearly had. And that was somehow worse. The warmth of Serena's breath. The way her voice had gentled into something not quite harsh anymore. The way her hand had lingered near Jade's skin, as if learning the space between them. It all replayed in an endless loop behind her eyes. But when morning arrived, Serena was absent. Not physically, she remained in the house, of course, but she no longer came into the kitchen. She didn't walk through the east wing. She canceled her typical morning inspection and began assigning duties through a deputy. Rather than addressing the staff directly, she was, by all appearances, evading Jade, and that angered her more than she anticipated. She wanted to forget the elevator, truly. But the way Serena had simply withdrawn, as if pretending it never occurred, as if Jade had never occurred, ignited something sharp within her. Day 1 passed. Day 2, nothing. Jade labored like an automaton, scrubbing, arranging, folding, hoping to tire out the agitation inside. But it remained. It became tension, irritation. And when she finally saw Serena again by chance in the hall leading to the conservatory, it struck her like an impact. Serena didn't halt. Jade didn't yield. And they met in the center of the narrow corridor like two opposing currents with no other path. You've been evading me, Jade said before she could stop herself. Serena lifted a brow. I lack time for trivial emotional games, Ms. Chen. That isn't what I asked. You are not in a position to ask anything. You weren't avoiding me earlier. Before what? Serena's eyes darkened. Unfathomable. Before the elevator. Is that what this concerns? I don't know, Jade said, pulse quickening. You tell me. Serena stepped closer. Not touching, never touching, yet her presence was immense. Let me be perfectly clear, she said softly. Whatever you believe transpired in that elevator, it did not. I was strained, and you misinterpreted. Did I? Jade said, matching her tone. Because you watched me. You leaned close. You are crossing a boundary, Serena snapped. And you are pretending you didn't wish to. Jade shot back. A beat. Something fractured. Serena's lips parted slightly. And for a moment, she looked almost adrift. Then she straightened. Forget it occurred, she said. That is an order. That isn't how individuals function, Jade whispered. That isn't how I function. Then perhaps this role is not for you. Jade felt the sting like a blow. But she didn't retreat. Perhaps it isn't. Serena held her gaze for a long, unbearable moment, then turned and walked off without another word. Jade's hands trembled by the time she returned to the main lounge. Her emotions were too high, her skin too sensitive. She needed air, room. But instead, She found herself in the midst of the afternoon cleaning shift, carrying a glass sculpture, some modern twisted piece worth more than her entire life, when her foot snagged on the rug's edge. The sculpture slipped, fell, shattered. Time halted. Silence spread through the room like spilled water. Jade stared at the fragments, dread climbing her spine. Within minutes, Agnes appeared, eyes wide. What occurred? Jade swallowed. I broke it. She will dismiss you, Agnes whispered. You must report it before she hears from another. So she did. She walked slowly, coldly, to the top floor. Serena's office door was shut. She knocked once, then again. Enter, came the familiar voice. When she stepped in, Serena didn't look up from her desk. Yes, I need to inform you of something. If it concerns the West Wing inventory. It isn't. Serena finally looked at her. Then speak. I shattered the sculpture in the main lounge. A pause. The Martin piece. I believe so. Serena stood slowly. Do you know its value? No. Then why are you shaking? Jade didn't answer. She despised that she trembled. Hated the tightness in her throat. Hated how this woman always made her feel near to breaking. Serena circled the desk until she stood just steps away. Why did you come? Tell me yourself. Because it was my error. And you believed honesty would lessen the penalty. No, Jade said. I simply didn't want anyone else to lie for me. Serena studied her a long while. Then, to Jade's astonishment, she walked to the bar cart in the room's corner, poured 2 fingers of an amber drink into a glass, and sipped slowly. It was hideous anyway. Jade blinked. What? The sculpture, Serena said. I detested it. My former partner gave it to prove he comprehended my taste. He did not. Serena nearly smiled. Nearly. No, he did not. She looked at Jade again. You are fortunate I am feeling generous. Why? Because if this were yesterday, I would have terminated you immediately. And today, I am striving not to recall how you watched me in the elevator. The silence that followed was different than before. Not sharp, not confrontational, just weighty, genuine. I should go, Jade said. Likely, but you aren't stopping me. No. Jade hesitated. Why? Serena walked back to her desk, sat slowly, and said without looking at her, because I don't know what I will do if you step any closer. That night, as Jade lay in her small attic room, the storm long past, the outside silence pressing in, she replayed those words. She considered the vulnerability hidden beneath Serena's eyes, and for the first time since arriving at the Whitlock estate, she felt the balance of power tilt toward her. Jade woke to the sound of gentle knocking. 3 light taps, not loud, enough to rouse the house, but enough to stir her. She blinked in the dark ceiling, briefly disoriented. Another knock. She slipped from bed, her thin shirt clinging from the August warmth, and padded barefoot to the door. When she opened it, her breath caught. Serena stood in the hallway barefoot, clothed in a silk robe the color of wine, her hair slightly mussed as if she'd run her fingers through it repeatedly. Her expression was unreadable, but not cold, only lost. I didn't intend to wake you, she said softly. Then why did you knock? Jade whispered back. Serena's eyes dropped for a heartbeat before returning to hers. I had a bad dream. That statement landed between them like admission. Jade didn't know how to respond. The woman before her didn't match the one who shouted orders across marble floors and humiliated executives with a single look. This version of Serena rumpled, unsettled, reaching out felt sacred. Would you like to come in? Jade asked, heart drumming. Serena didn't answer. She only watched her a moment longer, as if memorizing the question itself, then shook her head. No, I'm all right. And she turned away. But she didn't walk swiftly. She walked as if hoping Jade would halt her. Jade didn't. She stood there, heart pounding, until the woman vanished around the bend. The next morning, Serena behaved as if it had never occurred. But something in the atmosphere had changed. She summoned Jade to aid her personally in rearranging the private library, something no staff had ever been permitted to touch before. She didn't say why, just gave the order. Jade entered the vast quiet room and found Serena already waiting. Dressed in a dark green blouse tucked into high-waisted pants, heels off, barefoot again. She looked softer that way. Human alphabetical by author, she said, eyes scanning the shelves. The rest of the staff would have done it wrong. And you think I won't? Jade asked. No, Serena said without looking at her. You actually care. They worked side by side for hours in silence. Sometimes their hands would brush over the same book. Sometimes Jade would feel Serena's gaze when she turned her back. At one point when she climbed a ladder to reach the top shelf, she felt a hand steady the base without being asked. Strong, certain, careful, Serena murmured. And Jade felt the word all the way down her spine. Days passed like that. Quiet gestures, subtle shifts. Serena began asking her opinion on things. The menu, the flowers in the conservatory, the arrangement of the gallery. Small, insignificant decisions that somehow felt intimate coming from a woman who trusted no one. Then one evening, as Jade finished setting the dining table, Agnes approached her with a note in hand. From her, she said. Jade took it. One line. Pack a bag. One night. Discretion required. Car leaves at 7. No explanation. No signature. But she didn't need one. At precisely 7, a black car waited outside. Serena was already inside. Phone in hand, eyes focused. She didn't speak until they were out of the city. There's a satellite office in Cold Spring, she said. Emergency board signature needed by morning. I won't be staying long. You're here to assist. Assist how? Whatever I say. That should have annoyed her. But Jade wasn't naive. She knew Serena could have brought anyone, an assistant, a driver, a random intern. But she'd asked for her. They arrived at a quiet boutique hotel with high glass windows and stone walls. At the front desk, only one suite was reserved. There's only one bed, Jade said under her breath when they entered. There's a sofa, Serena replied, setting her bag down. Unless you're uncomfortable. I'm fine. Good. Serena removed her blazer, revealing the silk chamisole beneath. Deep gray, delicate, clearly not meant for boardrooms. Jade turned away quickly. I'll take the sofa. As you wish. The hours passed quietly. Serena worked at the desk. Jade read by the window, pretending not to look up every 5 seconds. Rain tapped softly against the glass. The tension in the room had a pulse of its own. At one point, Serena rose to pour herself a drink. Want one? She asked. Jade hesitated. Sure. She accepted the glass, fingers brushing Serena's again. It wasn't an accident this time. They both knew it. You're quieter than usual, Serena said. Maybe I don't know how to act when you're being not terrifying. Serena smirked faintly. Noted. A silence settled between them. Then Jade asked, Did you sleep after the nightmare? Serena looked at her slowly. No. Do you get them often? I don't sleep often. Jade nodded. That tracks. Do you dream lately? Only of elevators and impossible women. Serena's breath caught a sharp, surprised inhale. But she didn't laugh. She walked to the window back to Jade and said softly, You should be more careful with what you say. Why? Because I'm not as in control as I look. The honesty in her voice cracked something open in the room. Jade stood, moved slowly to where Serena stood, stopped in chest behind her, then stopped pretending. Serena turned. Their faces were close. Too close. The space between them electric. Their breaths collided, but nothing happened. Not yet. Serena stepped back. Sleep well, Miss Chen. And just like that, the moment dissolved. But it didn't disappear. It waited. The return to the mansion felt anticlimactic. No words were exchanged in the car. No glances. No acknowledgments of what had almost happened. In that hotel suite, Jade tried to act unaffected. So did Serena, but the silence between them had grown teeth. It wasn't emptiness anymore. It was a tension so thick it pressed on Jade's skin, like heat. For the next 24 hours, Serena vanished. Again, meetings, calls, doors that stayed shut. Jade didn't push, but she felt it everywhere. In the way the other staff looked at her. In the way her own heartbeat kicked up whenever she heard footsteps behind her. Then came the Friday luncheon, an annual gathering Serena hosted for investors and a select few executives. It was supposed to be formal, quiet, flawless. Jade had never worked one before. Agnes prepped her endlessly. Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't touch the wrong cutlery. And above all, don't make eye contact with Serena. The last part was impossible. The event began mid-afternoon under the filtered light of the West Atrium. The air smelled like roses and money. Everyone spoke in clipped tones. Laughter, carefully calculated. Jade moved between tables with the other servers carrying trays with silver flats of champagne. Her uniform felt tighter than usual, her skin warmer. And then it happened, a misstep. One of the older guests, a man in a navy suit with wandering eyes, reached out accidentally to brush against her waist. She flinched, tray tilting. 2 glasses toppled, spilling down the back of a guest's designer jacket. Time stopped. Gasps. Whispers. Agnes froze. The guest stood up, face red with outrage. What is the meaning of this? He barked. Jade opened her mouth to apologize, but her voice caught. Her hands trembled. She looked up, and there she was. Serena across the atrium, already walking toward them, silent, sharp, lethal in heels. Ms. Pembroke, she said, calm and cold. What happened? Jade tried to speak. It was my fault. It wasn't. Serena cut in. Her eyes turned to the man who had reached for Jade. Mr. Adler, I believe your hand slipped where it didn't belong. Gasps again. This time, sharper. Adler's face turned purple. Excuse me. You're excused, Serena said icily. And not welcome at my table again. Silence. People looked away. Jade's lungs stopped working. Serena didn't look at her again. She simply turned, heels clicking, and vanished back into the house. The luncheon continued in awkward whispers. That night, Jade couldn't sleep. Her body felt tight with adrenaline, with confusion, with something dangerously close to gratitude and longing tangled together. She was already in bed, eyes wide open. In the dark when the knock came, 3 soft taps. This time, she didn't hesitate. She opened the door and found Serena there, barefoot again, wearing black silk pajamas that looked both powerful and devastating. Come to my room, Serena said. I want to go over the cold spring reports now. Jade asked, heart leaping. It's nearly midnight. Are you refusing? No, Jade whispered, just surprised. Serena didn't smile. She turned and walked away. Jade followed. The house was silent, shadows stretching long across marble floors. Serena's bedroom was larger than Jade's entire childhood apartment. Dark wood, deep rugs, a private fireplace glowing with low light. On the bed, folders were spread open in neat stacks. Sit, Serena said, motioning to the bench at the foot of the bed. Jade did. Serena sat on the other side, their knees nearly touching. You were right, she said after a long pause. About the luncheon, I didn't say anything, Jade replied. You didn't have to. Your face did. I thought you were going to fire me. You thought wrong. Why didn't you? Serena looked at her long steady. Because for once I cared what it would feel like to lose someone. The words stunned Jade into silence. She searched Serena's expression for sarcasm, for cruelty, but found neither. Only exhaustion. Honesty. Is that what you're afraid of? She asked, losing control. I never had it, Serena murmured. Not with you. A silence stretched between them. Not awkward, not tense, just full. "What are you so afraid of?" Jade asked, voice barely above a whisper. Serena inhaled sharply. Then slowly she stood but didn't move away. She stepped in front of Jade close enough that her knees brushed Jade's legs. Her fingers hovered at her own collarbone. She looked down at Jade like she was seeing something she had no idea how to name. And then finally she reached out. Her fingers grazed Jade's cheek, slow and reverent, as though uncertain she had permission. Jade closed her eyes, leaned into the contact, and then Serena kissed her gently at first, testing, questioning. But when Jade returned the kiss, it fractured something between them. The kiss intensified, grew hungrier. Serena's hand slid to Jade's waist, drawing her up from the bench, pressing their bodies close. Jade's fingers wove into her hair. They didn't speak. They didn't have to. The fire murmured softly behind them, and for the first time since Jade had entered that mansion, there was no more pretense. Only heat. Only surrender. Only them. Jade didn't sleep that night. Not after the kiss. Not after the fire. Not after the moment Serena drew back, breathless and subdued, and whispered, "I need to be alone." The words weren't harsh, but they weren't tender either. They were threaded with confusion, alarm, something vulnerable and guarded. Jade nodded, collected her things with unsteady hands, and left the room silently. Lips still tender from how Serena had kissed her like she'd been starving. But now Jade was starving too, for answers, for a glance, for anything. The next morning, she expected to be fired or avoided or reprimanded, but instead she was reassigned. Back to the East Wing. No more library, no more special duties. Just floors, laundry, dishes. She didn't see Serena once. Not that day. Not the next. It was like being exiled without cause. As though the kiss had never occurred. As though she had never occurred. Agnes noticed. Of course she did. "What did you do?" she asked quietly during breakfast prep. "I didn't do anything. That's the trouble, isn't it?" But Jade didn't answer. She couldn't describe what it felt like to be touched like a secret, then treated as if you never existed. She tried to suppress it. Tried to work more, keep quiet, remain unseen. But it was futile. Serena was everywhere in her thoughts. The feel of her mouth, the warmth of her hands, the way she had looked at her as if something inside were breaking open. Then came the gala. Serena's yearly charity function, held at the mansion. An evening of gowns, jewels, hushed agreements, and artificial cheer. Staff moved like phantoms behind the scenes, perfectly synchronized and impeccably trained. And, for the first time, Jade wasn't merely part of the backdrop. She had to help directly in the VIP area, which meant seeing her all night. Serena appeared on the grand staircase just after 8. A black satin dress clung to her form as if stitched directly onto her skin. Hair styled, lips red, expression unreadable. She was stunning, devastating, and Jade hated how her own chest constricted just from the sight. Serena didn't look at her. Not once. Not when Jade carried champagne. Not when their arms almost touched. Not even when a guest remarked about the pretty little thing serving hors d'oeuvres. And Jade stiffened with anger. Serena didn't defend her this time. She didn't speak. She simply smiled at the guest, the cold smile Jade now recognized meant, "I despise you, and you'll never realize." The night stretched. Guests laughed. Music played. But Jade watched as Serena gradually unraveled. She smiled too widely. She drank just enough to soften the edge of her composure. And when she finally slipped from the crowd, Jade followed, not because she wished to, but because something in her had to. She found Serena in the garden behind the East Wing, standing near the roses, her back to the house, arms wrapped tightly around herself. "You don't enjoy parties," Jade said softly. Serena didn't turn. "No. Then why host them?" "Because they remind everyone I'm still the one in charge." "Are you?" A pause. Then Serena turned. Her face in the moonlight seemed different, softer, paler, stripped of the authority she wore like armor. "What do you want, Jade?" The way she said her name low, fractured, to intimate made Jade ache. "I want to know what that kiss meant." "It meant I made an error." The words cut like shards, but Jade didn't retreat. "Then why are you trembling?" Serena's arms tightened around herself. "I don't want this. You don't want me. I don't want to feel." Jade stepped nearer. "Why?" "Because everything I've ever felt was used against me." Her voice broke. "Because I spent years constructing a life where I couldn't be touched. Because if I want you, if I allow you in," her breath caught, "you could destroy me." "I'm not here to destroy you," Jade whispered. "You already have," Serena said. And then, softer, "I haven't stopped thinking about you. Every time I enter a room, I wonder if you'll be there. Every time I close my eyes, I see you." Jade's voice shook. "Then why push me away?" "Because wanting you frightens me." The words came out in a breath, a confession, a collapse. Jade stepped even closer now. The scent of roses hung between them. Her voice was barely audible. "Then let it." Serena looked at her, really looked at her for the first time in days. And something shifted. Her hands lowered. Her expression fractured. And suddenly she wasn't CEO Whitlock anymore. She was just a woman in pain, longing, human. "I don't know how to release," she said. Jade reached out. "Then start here." And she took Serena's hand slowly, carefully, as though constructing something sacred from wreckage. Serena didn't withdraw. She just held on. Jade wasn't certain what shifted first, the glances, the tone, or the quiet. After the garden, nothing between them was quite the same, yet nothing was spoken either. No more kisses, no admissions. Just that one moment, standing beneath the moonlight, hand in hand, the space between them alive with something that couldn't be named aloud. But after that night, Serena stopped evading her. She began to seek her out. Small things, minor requests. "Help me with these files. Can you accompany me to the gallery? I require someone I can trust." That last one stayed with her. Trust. The way Serena said it was almost like a trial, as if the word itself held a weight that could either break or shield. Jade didn't challenge it. She followed. She stayed near. But her chest ached each time. She had to pretend nothing had occurred. Each time, their hands almost touched and didn't. Each time, Serena's eyes held hers a moment too long before glancing away. The house felt different too. The staff noticed. Agnes didn't speak directly, but Jade caught her gaze, that blend of concern and silent comprehension only someone who had lived long enough could offer. "Be cautious," Agnes finally said one evening in the linen room with her. "Why?" Jade whispered. "Because she doesn't know how to be soft." Jade didn't reply, but she felt the truth of it deep within. And still, she went when Serena called. Late one afternoon, a storm moved in swiftly, swallowing the sky in slate gray. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Jade was in Serena's office, organizing documents from the spring trip, while Serena sat at her desk reading a thick novel with a red spine and gold lettering. The silence between them was gentle, almost warm, comforting. Outside, rain began to tap the windows, steady and persistent. "What are you reading?" Jade asked, not looking up. "Something I've read before." "Then why again?" "Because it reminds me how much people can endure." Jade glanced at her. "That sounds intense." Serena looked up, one brow arched. "You sound surprised." "You don't strike me as the type of woman who requires reminders of anything." "That's because you don't know how much I forget." The lights flickered once, twice, then went out. Darkness consumed the room. For a moment, neither moved. The silence was total, thick as velvet. "Generator?" Jade asked quietly. "Should activate soon," Serena replied, her voice strangely calm in the dark. But it didn't. The storm growled louder now, rain driving sideways against the tall windows. Somewhere in the mansion, a door slammed from wind pressure. Jade stood slowly, trying to orient herself in the dim shadows cast by rain-filtered light. "Do you have candles in the cabinet?" Serena said. "Left side." Jade located them by touch, fumbling for a lighter, her hands brushing the cool metal of the drawer. When the small flame finally lit, it cast a warm golden glow across the space and across Serena's face. The firelight softened her. She looked younger somehow. "Sadder. Sit," she said softly, gesturing to the couch across from her. Jade obeyed. Serena stood, crossed the room, and sat beside her. Not close, not quite, but not far either. "I used to love storms," she said after a long pause. "When I was a child." "What changed?" "I did." Jade turned toward her. "What happened to you?" Serena looked down at her hands folded in her lap like something she didn't know how to hold. "My father left when I was 13. Just vanished. No note. No reason. My mother pretended he'd died, but he hadn't. He began another life across the country with another woman. New children. I saw photos of them once." Her voice didn't tremble, but her shoulders did. "He looked happy." Jade's throat tightened. "I'm sorry. Don't be. That's what taught me not to expect anyone to stay." She looked at Jade then. Really looked. "Especially when you start needing them." The room was so quiet Jade could hear her own heartbeat. "That's why you pushed me away." Serena didn't answer. "Because you believe I'll leave." "Because you could," Serena whispered. "And I wouldn't survive it." Jade reached out without thinking. Her fingers brushed Serena's. This time, she didn't pull back. Instead, Serena turned, her hand over, letting their palms press together, warm and trembling. "You frighten me," Serena admitted. "Because I want you, and I don't wish to want anything." Jade smiled faintly. "That's the most human thing I've ever heard you say. Don't grow accustomed to it. Too late." They sat like that for a long time, hands joined in the candlelight, the storm outside raging, and yet somehow feeling more distant than ever. And in that small, golden-lit world, Jade began to understand that what was growing between them wasn't merely desire. It was something slower, stronger, and infinitely more dangerous. The days after the storm felt different, not because something had altered, but because something had finally been acknowledged. Jade still cleaned. Serena still worked. Orders were still given. Rules were still followed. But beneath it all, there was a new rhythm. Slower, deeper. Each time their eyes met, it lingered. Each time their fingers brushed, they didn't pretend. It didn't happen. There were no more apologies, no more fleeing. But there were boundaries, and both knew it. They kept it quiet. If not for themselves, then for everyone else. The mansion operated as always, silent, polished, humming with restrained elegance. But Agnes noticed. Of course she did. She always did. "She looks at you like you're not meant to exist," she murmured one morning while folding linens. "But also like she can't help herself." Jade didn't answer because she didn't know what to say. She was falling quietly, dangerously, completely, and she was beginning to believe Serena was falling too. That belief held until the woman in the red dress appeared. It was a Wednesday, early afternoon. A private meeting had been added to Serena's calendar, one no one had been told about. Jade was in the East Hall, polishing the stair railing, when the front door opened and a woman stepped in, confident and without pause. She was tall with sharp cheekbones and dark auburn hair pulled into a sleek bun. Her dress, crimson, form-fitting, backless, was made to be remembered. Agnes appeared instantly. "May I help you?" "I'm here to see Serena," the woman said. "Tell her Francesca has arrived." Jade froze. The name struck like a blow. Francesca, she'd heard it once, whispered late at night from another's lips, the only name Serena had ever allowed herself to speak. With regret, Francesca had been the one, The almost, the wound. Wait here, Agnes said, and left quickly. Jade stood still, cloth in hand, heart beating faster than it should. She told herself to keep moving, to look away, but she couldn't. Minutes later, Serena descended the stairs slower than usual. Her face was unreadable, her heels echoing softly. Francesca, she said, the name smooth on her tongue. You look exactly the same. You look better, Francesca replied, a slight smile curving her lips. Can we talk? Serena glanced at Agnes, then nodded once. Library. The two women disappeared behind the doors. Jade couldn't move. She told herself it was none of her concern, that she was just staff, that she had no right to care. But the ache in her chest didn't heed logic. She waited 15 minutes before walking past the library. She wasn't proud of it. She wasn't even sure what she expected, but what she saw through the small sliver of open door stole the air from her lungs. Serena and Francesca were standing close. Too close. Francesca was laughing softly, her fingers brushing Serena's wrist. Serena wasn't pulling away. She was smiling, not politely, not coldly, but like she used to smile at Jade. And then, as if the universe wished to punish her for every fragile hope she'd built, Francesca leaned in, kissed Serena's cheek, whispered something, and Serena didn't move. Jade turned before she could see more. Her chest burned, her throat ached, her eyes stung. She didn't run, but she walked quickly to her room, closed the door, and broke. It wasn't jealousy exactly. It was displacement, like she'd been permitted a seat at a table where she never truly belonged. And now the rightful guest had returned. She didn't cry. Not really. Just sat there motionless until the ache turned to clarity, and clarity turned to resolve. That night, she packed a small bag, just the essentials, no note, no dramatic farewell. She didn't want Serena's pity. She didn't want a performance. She wanted to leave with what was left of her pride. Agnes found her at the front door. Where are you going? Jade avoided her eyes. Somewhere I still feel real. Does she know? It doesn't matter. Agnes grabbed her arm gently. Don't let one moment erase everything. It wasn't one moment, Jade said, her voice hollow. It was silence and distance and a kiss that didn't mean enough. She opened the door. The night air was sharp, heavy. Tell her I'm grateful, or tell her yourself. She made her choice. And with that, Jade stepped out into the dark alone again. Serena knew something was wrong the moment she stepped into the east hallway and felt it. Absence. Not silence that was normal in her world, but absence. The kind that hummed through the walls when someone who once belonged there simply didn't anymore. She paused by the linen closet. The air felt different, too still. Agnes stood near the staff staircase, arms crossed, face tight. Where is she? Serena asked. Gone? Agnes said, voice low. She left last night. Left. Serena frowned. She didn't have permission. She wasn't asking for it. Serena's breath caught. She turned on her heel and walked fast, heart racing before her mind could catch up. She climbed the narrow stairs to the attic floor, opened the small door at the end of the corridor, and froze. The room was clean, empty. Bed made, drawers open. The small photograph Jade had kept on her nightstand, a worn image of her and her mother in front of a diner, was gone. The bag by the door gone. The book she'd borrowed from the library gone. Serena stood in the center of the room, hands shaking. No, she whispered. No, no, no. Francesca's voice echoed behind her. She left you. Serena turned slowly. Francesca leaned in the doorway, arms folded, one brow raised. I thought she'd at least put up a fight. Why are you still here? Serena asked, her voice dangerously calm. You invited me. I did. And now you've remembered why I broke you. You didn't break me. No. Francesca stepped inside. The rain had stopped, But the streets of New York still gleamed like dark glass under the city lights, reflecting the neon signs and the headlights of late-night traffic. Serena stood for a moment in the alley behind the closed bookstore, her hand resting on the cold, wet iron of the gate. Her knuckles were white with the force of her grip, the only outward sign of the tempest raging within her. Hours of searching, of chasing ghosts through the city based on fragments of memories Jade had once shared, had led her here, to a single light in a second-floor window, and a silhouette curled in a chair. "Please be her," she whispered into the damp, still air, the words a prayer she hadn't realized she was capable of uttering. She pushed the gate. It groaned in protest but yielded. The back stairs were narrow, metal, clanging softly under her weight. Each step felt like a lifetime. She raised a hand, her usually steady fingers trembling, and knocked once. The sound was too loud in the quiet alley. The door opened, and there she was. Jade, barefoot, drowning in that same oversized sweater she always slept in, her hair a messy, dark halo around her startled face. A book was clutched in her hand. Her eyes, wide and luminous, held a universe of confusion and hurt. "Serena, what are you?" "You left," Serena interrupted, her voice barely a thread of sound, strained and raw. It wasn't an accusation. It was a confession of bewilderment. "You let me," Jade replied, her own voice small. "I thought that's what you wanted. After Francesca, you thought wrong." The words were firmer now, infused with a certainty that had been absent for days. "I let you because I was afraid. I saw her touch me, and I saw you see it. And I panicked. I thought if I leaned back into that old, cold world, the one I understood, I could forget what you've become to me." Jade's throat moved as she swallowed. "And what's that?" Serena didn't hesitate. "The truth, once found, demanded to be spoken. The one person I don't know how to live without anymore." The silence that followed was thick, charged, stretching. Between them in the dim hallway, Jade blinked, her lips parting slightly as she processed the words. The defensive hunch of her shoulders softened. "You're scared," she observed, her voice barely a whisper. "Terrified," Serena admitted, the word foreign and heavy on her tongue. A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched Jade's lips. "Good. Why is that good?" "Because," Jade said, her voice gaining a sliver of strength, "I am too." It was as if the very air between them cracked, releasing the pressure, the doubt, the fear. Serena took a step forward, crossing the threshold from the hallway into Jade's space, into her life, once again. "I didn't come here as your boss. I didn't come to give you an order or demand a thing. I came because I don't care what this is supposed to look like. I don't care what rules I break. I just want you here with me." Jade shook her head, but it wasn't in rejection. It was in sheer, stunned disbelief. "You're saying all the right things." Finally, Serena breathed. "I mean them." "Then prove it." Serena reached out then. Her movement was slow, deliberate, giving Jade every opportunity to retreat. Her hand did not grasp or demand. It simply offered, palm up, an invitation. "Come home." Jade's breath hitched, a soft, broken sound. She looked from Serena's eyes to her waiting hand and back again. "And if I say yes, then I'll make it worth everything," Serena vowed, her gaze unwavering. "Everything we've both been afraid of." Jade didn't speak. There were no more words needed. She simply stepped forward, closing the final distance, and placed her hand in Serena's. Her fingers were cool, but they curled around Serena's with a resolve that echoed in Serena's soul. Serena held on, her grip firm but gentle, and led her back down the clanging stairs, through the iron gate, and into the waiting car. The drive back to the Whitlock estate was silent, but it was a different silence than before. It wasn't empty, it was full of unspoken promises, of breaths finally released, of a future trembling on the horizon. The return wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. The curved driveway was empty, the grand front doors looming in the darkness. Serena killed the engine, and in the sudden quiet, the gentle creak of the car doors opening sounded like a new beginning. She didn't let go of Jade's hand. Not once. She led her up the steps, through the doors, and into the marble foyer, their footsteps echoing softly. It was a silent declaration, not for the staff who might be watching from the shadows, but for herself and for Jade. A vow that she would not let this woman walk alone through this cold, imposing house again. Not if she could help it. Agnes materialized at the edge of the corridor, a silent specter in the dim light. Her sharp eyes flicked down to their joined hands, then to the small bag Jade carried, and finally back to Serena's face. She didn't speak. She didn't smile. But she gave one slow, deliberate nod. It could have been approval. It could have been a warning. In that moment, Serena chose to see it as acceptance. Serena stopped at the foot of the grand staircase. She turned to Jade, her voice soft, meant only for her. "Your room is still made up," she said quietly. "But you don't have to go back to it." Jade searched her eyes, the question shining within them. "And if I don't, then you stay," Serena said, the words simple and profound. "With me, tonight, and as many nights as you want." The silence that settled between them then was thick, but it was warm. It was a living thing, pulsing with potential. They didn't kiss. Not yet. Not here. Under the watchful eyes of the portraits and the architecture of Serena's old life. But the promise of it hung in the air, shimmering in the space between their joined fingers, in the steady rhythm of their matched breathing. The storm had passed. They were home, and for the first time, it truly felt like one.